भगवान श्री योगी रामसूरतकुमार की
जय।
सर्वं
योगी रामसूरतकुमारार्पणमस्तु।
We owe Bhagwan a deep debt of gratitude for all these days. What could have been? Gratitude for all these days. What could have been? A terrible suffering, a time of loneliness and suffering. Bhagwan, by an arrangement, changed it into Nama Sankirtan Satsang. Yogiji used to say, when you Nama Sankirtan Satsang. Yogiji used to say, when you look at the ocean and the waves, the incessant movement of the waves on the surface of the ocean, you see how restless the sea is, like all of us are. all the time busy with something or the other. But just looking at the surface of the ocean, you cannot judge it. Deep down, there is absolute stillness in the ocean. So he would say, it's my Father who created both the restless waves on the surface and the deep stillness down there, making it one complete structure. And he would say, the one who made it can do anything, anytime. So no matter how the world looks now, the lawlessness, the cruelties, absolutely no human values, and a lot of glittering, tinsel world, promiscuous life. You can just go on adding. No matter how it looks, these are all Bhagwan's words. No matter how the world looks today, if my Father wants it, he could change the whole thing overnight. In a fraction of a second, he could change the whole thing. So whenever he used to say that, I used to wonder, because even Father had to obey the laws of nature which he made. He could not break the laws of nature which he himself made. So whatever should happen could happen only gradually. Why is it Bhagwan say that my Father could change the whole thing in a fraction of a second? Overnight, he would say. And we saw how this tiny coronavirus changed the whole face of the world overnight. March 15th it was different, March 16th it was different. In one day, everything changed. So if Father wants anything, he could do so overnight. So it's good that Father wanted us to spend our time thinking of Bhagwan, singing his name and talking about him, instead of feeling very lonely, isolated. To spend our time thinking of Bhagwan, singing his name and talking about him, instead of feeling very lonely, isolated, and distanced from everything familiar. Now, we shall go back to Sannadhi Street House, but the time is now 10 years have passed from 1979. We have come to now 87, 88. There's one thing about the mind. It can assume any speed. If I want it mentally, I can right now be in the North Pole. In 1 second, in fraction of a second, the mind can go there, here and there. So we have a vehicle that could take us instantly. How many years back now? This is 20 plus 12. 32 years back. Let's go back. Travel backwards. 88, Sanadi Street house, and Sadhu Rangarajan, who was in Chennai for quite some time. After that, he shifted his abode to Bangalore. Now he's living in Bangalore, busy with his own work, the work given by Bhagwan, the spreading of Rama Nama, and the work that pertains to that. We see him right at the doorstep of Sanadi Street house, knocking at the door rather timidly. And there is his son Vivekanandan by his side, and then one Shekar, Lieutenant Shekar. The three of them were visiting Bhagwan. The date was 25th April 1988. The 26th April, the next day, was the Jayanti day of Papa Ramdas, which was to be celebrated in the banyan tree cave by Swami Sundaraman. He had invited Sadhu Rangarajan to give a speech, to preside over, and Sadhu Rangarajan landed the previous day evening itself so that he could have darshan of Bhagwan. So here he was, knocking at the door, very much afraid that they might not have darshan at all. In those days, all of us, when we travelled to have darshan of Bhagwan, we would go to pieces just thinking about it. Suppose Bhagwan says, you can go, this beggar is busy. Suppose we couldn't get to see him at all. He simply sends word through somebody from inside. We won't even have a glimpse of him at a distance. Thinking all this, the mind would plunge into depths of despair. And suddenly the hope would come. The hope would come to the fore, and then we would think, okay, we may get to see him. Now, Sadhu Rangarajan was no less state, like many of us, but to his delight and surprise, immediately the wooden door opened and Bhagwan walked towards a gate, the grill gate. And what was most surprising was the letter he was carrying in his hand. It was the letter Sadhu Rangarajan had dropped. It was as though Bhagwan of course always knew. He knew Sadhu Rangarajan was coming and he was walking towards a gate with his very letter. And then he received the milk. Then Sadhu Rangarajan explained why they were there, and the next day, this function in the banyan tree cave, all that. He was asking about a friend who had not come that day, and about Shekar who had come. And Sadhu Rangarajan introduced Shekar, saying that he was interested in Subhash Chandra Bose, and how he died, how they could not bring the ashes from Japan and all that. Then it was Bhagwan who started to talk. He said it was Swami Vivekananda who influenced Netaji. He was responsible for Netaji's giving up his idea of going in for ICS and turning into a fierce patriot. Then the discussions turned to the role of beggars in the society. Bhagwan was very vehement and emphatic in his disapproval of the government's policy of rounding up beggars and prosecuting them. Rangaraja, this land has always been a land of beggars. Right from Vedic times, the great masters have come down in the form of beggars. And there is Vedic sanction. You see Sudama? Sudama was a beggar. And you see how Krishna received him with the honors. Krishna did puja to his holy feet, Krishna and his wife. He fed him sumptuously and gifted him with so many things. This is how, right from Vedic time, the great masters had been treated. And now everything seems to change. My master, Papa Ramdas, was also a beggar. You would have known about it from the book In Quest of God. And this beggar was also traveling like a beggar. In those days, this beggar did not wear any basma, any vibhuti on his forehead, nor did he wear any tulsi mala or rudraksh. This beggar was in rags, dirty rags. But still, in Gujarat, when this beggar was in Sabarmati, those mothers there used to throw some coins to this beggar, which was sufficient for 3 days' food. Those mothers were kind, unlike the other states, because it's the land of Mahatma Gandhi. And then Bhagwan went on to say that those people must be, it's not only for sadhus and sannyasis like we saw yesterday, it's also ordinary beggars. Bhagwan said, why would you abolish those beggars? Are beggars because they don't have money and they have to eat somehow, they have to survive. So what could they do except beg for money or food? And by throwing a few coins to him, you're not going to make him a millionaire, nor would you lose your wealth. In fact, in the Vedic injunction is that you have to go out in search of the great souls who would come in the form of beggars, beg them to come home and feed them, and after that only you would eat. But we are fast losing all that spiritual heritage. And then he instructed Sadhu Rangarajan ji to write an editorial in his magazine Tattva Darshana about this. He said, you'll read Manusmriti, Yajnavalkya Smriti, and Kalidas, the Kavyas, and quote extensively and discuss it, deal with the subject. In a way, you would make the point to the people, make people understand the value of this. And then Bhagwan said, they say, Matru Devo Bhava, Pitru Devo Bhava, Acharya Devo Bhava, Atiti Devo Bhava. This is our tradition, Rangaraja. We must go out to find people seeking alms and entertain them. So says the Shastra. And then Bhagwan said, Lilozovic was connected with the tradition of the bowls, the beggars, and then he said he has written some poems on this beggar also. He gave them to Rangarajan. And then the conversation turned to the function, and Bhagwan said immediately, it's now 7 o'clock. Swami Sundaraman will be waiting for you. You better get moving. This beggar will leave you now. Then Sadhu Rangarajan asked him for permission to visit him again the next day after the function was over. Bhagwan said, why? This beggar has seen you nicely now. This beggar cannot tell you for sure how this beggar would be tomorrow. You can go now. So Sri Rangarajanji left, and then the next day morning was the day of the celebration, and the whole place, this banyan tree cave, was busy with people around. People started to crowd into the place, and over the cave there was a rock, and Rangarajanji was seated there on the rock, doing his Gayatri Japa, looking at the sun. And then he also saw the Tiruvannamalai city down there, sprawled. And then his thoughts were mostly about Yogiji. Even though he was doing Gayatri, he was completely occupied with Bhagwan, and he was thinking there in the town somewhere, Yogi Ramsuratkumar is living. And then his thoughts began to center around Yogi Ramsuratkumar Bhagwan. He finished his japa, came down. Then he found there was some activity nearby. So he went there to see what it was all about. And then to his great wonder and delight, he found Bhagwan Yogi Ramsuratkumar standing there. He had brought somebody with him. And then Bhagwan said, where is Rangaraja? This beggar came to see him. And then he said, oh Rangaraja, this beggar came all the way only to see you. You asked this beggar whether you could come to see him today. This beggar thought, okay, this beggar would go and see Rangaraja. And Swami Sundaram had invited this beggar. So this beggar thought he could combine both and be here. This beggar has come here only for Rangaraja. And then he laughed, took his hand and asked him, where were you staying up till now? Sri Rangarajan pointed out the rock. Why I am saying Sri Rangarajan? Because soon after this, the Diksha would take place, and then Bhagwan would call him Sadhu. That's how he came to be known, Sadhu Rangarajan. Until then, he was a professor and editor of the magazine. So Bhagwan went up there to the rock, and then he sat with Rangarajanji. He said, this beggar wants to spend some time with Rangarajanji. In the meantime, some more people came and prostrated before him, and they were all seated. Then Bhagwan brought him down. At that time, Bhagwan, when he was seated up there, he started to talk about aggressive Hinduism. He said the Hindus have been taking things for quite a while, lying down, allowing all kinds of aggressions to take place. He talked about Swami Vivekananda and said it was Vivekananda who first talked about this aggressive Hinduism. It was his inspiration. He said the familiar quotation he loved so much, which always drew peals of laughter from him. He said, do you know Rangaraja? Swami Vivekananda said, What has India been doing for ages and ages except producing sages? You see, India is a country which has to produce Mahatmas. The scientific discoveries, the technological advancements, they are not for India. India has to make Mahatmas. It is the land of the great masters. By then, one Christy from Finland, she's also a devotee, she joined and then said, Swami, Hinduism is growing in Europe and America. Many people are taking to Hinduism there. They have all become Hindus. Immediately Bhagwan laughed, yes, they're all becoming Hindus. Here in India, we're all becoming Christians. There is so much conversion going on. And then Bhagwan said, this beggar once asked a Catholic priest, will you convert a Protestant into a Catholic Christian? And the Catholic priest immediately said, no, we won't do that. Then this beggar asked him, then why are you converting Hindus? And the Catholic priest could not say anything. My friends, if Hinduism goes from India, who will preserve our Vedas and Upanishads? So when this talk was going on, the breakfast was being served everywhere down there in something like in a clearance. And then they brought the breakfast to Bhagwan and Rangarajanji and served there up there. And Sri Rangarajan said that he was on vratam, he was fasting, he could not take anything with salt. Then Bhagwan himself put some fruits and made him eat. And then somebody came and said, Swami, we want to take a photograph. Bhagwan said, okay, you can take a photograph, but Rangaraja should be there. This beggar would like a photograph with Rangaraja. Don't leave him out. So he came and took that. And then Bhagwan looked at Christy, because Bhagwan knew. He always knew all the detail. He said, Christy, do you want to take a photograph? Yes, Swami, she smiled, because she knew that he knew. She had brought her camera also there. And just when Christy was going to take photograph, out of the blue, two monkeys came and sat right behind Bhagwan. Then Christy hesitated. Bhagwan laughed and said, why, Christy? They are Sugriva and Hanumanji, so you can take photograph. Pointing out that he was Sri Rama. It was Kishkinda. Kishkinda was like a mountain like Arunachala, and that is where Sugriva and Hanuman lived. And Rama went and made friends with them. So this was an opportunity when Bhagwan, the truth of Bhagwan came out of his own mouth, a rare event. And then the Sundaram Swami came up and said, Swami, we have to start the function. You please come down and you preside over. Bhagwan said, oh, this beggar cannot talk, Sundaram. Rangaraja here can talk. You can take him, you can ask him to preside. And then they came down to see what was happening. They sat for a few minutes, and then Bhagwan said, Rangaraja, let us go to this banyan tree cave where Papa Ramdas used to be. Come. And then he dragged him to the cave, and they went inside the cave, because this function was arranged outside. So they went into the cave, and then Bhagwan very excitedly began to show Sri Rangarajanji, see, this is where Papa Ramdas used to sit. Papa Ramdas, when he was here, he used to come down to see, to have Darshana Bhagwan Ramana every day. It is here, he was sitting, it is here, you could see him often. He started excitedly, and then he said, Rangaraja, we shall do some bhajans here. And then Bhagwan started Om Shri Ram Jai Ram Jai Jai Ram. So the two of them were chanting the mantra Om Shri Ram Jai Ram Jai Jai Ram for some time. Then Sadhu Rangarajan, the way everything was happening, Bhagwan by his side, holding his hand in his grip. And this was Banyan Tree Cave, the place where Papa Ramdas was doing his tapas. And they were singing together, Om Shri Ram Jai Ram Jai Jai Ram. He felt overwhelmed. And then Sadhu Rangarajan prostrated before Bhagwan and said, Bhagwan, will you please give me Diksha? This is a perfect setting, a perfect place for getting initiated. Just as Papa Ramdas initiated you with the mantra, please give me Diksha here, in this place. And then Bhagwan said, oh, this beggar doesn't initiate anybody like that, but Rangaraja is asking, so this beggar will do. And then he made Rangaraja sit there, and Bhagwan spoke this mantra, Om Shri Ram Jai Ram Jai Jai Ram, 3 times into the ears of Sadhu Rangarajan, and then made him repeat it after him. After the initiation is over, again overwhelmed, Rangarajanji said, Bhagwan, I don't want to be a professor or editor anymore. I want to become a beggar like you. Please bless me. I want to be a sadhu, beggar, like you. Then Bhagwan said, no, Rangaraja. This beggar says, you don't have to go wandering like this beggar did. You don't have to do that. You have so much work to do. This beggar says, you are a sadhu. You are Sadhu Rangarajan. And that is how the name came to him. So Bhagwan declared again and again that Rangaraja is a sadhu. He doesn't have to wander like a beggar, like this beggar did. He is already a sadhu. This beggar says you are a sadhu, Rangaraja. You may be a professor or an editor, but above all, you are a sadhu. This beggar says Rangaraja is a sadhu. His emphatic declaration brought tears of joy in the eyes of Sadhu Rangarajan. Then he said, Bhagwan, will you please tell me what I should do next? Where should I go? In what name I must carry on my work? Rangaraja, my father will guide you, Rangaraja, from time to time. My father will also see that you are not misguided by any. Then he called his son Vivekananda to come and sit inside the cave. All the devotees were watching them from outside. They also came. In the meantime, Bhagwan was asking Sadhu Rangarajan to go out, bring some water to drink, quite a few times. And then Bhagwan would make Sadhu Rangarajan also drink the leftover water. And then they all came down. Sadhu Rangarajan that day spoke about the glorious spiritual heritage of and the Guru Parampara of Bharatavarsha, starting from Dakshinamurti to Swami Ramdas and to Yogi Ramsuratkumar. And then he returned to the yogi, who blessed him and took him to the cave after a few minutes. Sadhu Rangarajan was going to visit Caribbean islands. And Bhagwan also spoke about South America, where many Hindus were already living. And then some other names he had mentioned, something like Siddha Narahari and Om Tat Sat. Adigal and other people joined. Anyway, the whole session, as far as we are concerned, is coming to a conclusion. Bhagwan initiated him not only to a mantra, he initiated the work of his life, Sadhu Rangarajan's life, spreading the Rama Nama and going about it, this aggressive Hinduism, like how not to allow the conversions to take place, and the steps that he joined the right group of people, and he's still carrying on the work. So it was also initiation into his lifetime work. So this gives us another glimpse of Bhagwan, another dimension of Bhagwan, because Bhagwan otherwise would not talk about aggressive Hinduism. When he was caught by 4 thugs near the bus stand of Tiruvannamalai, and they started to beat him, he simply let them beat him. And the blood was oozing all over, and they had snatched his coconut shell and the newspapers, and they just went on and on and on. Bhagwan did not resist. And there were 20 people standing nearby watching the whole thing, not coming forward. Not one of them came forward to help him. They did not come forward for their own reasons. Most of them were afraid of these thugs, these ruffians. When Perumal and others came running after they heard the news, those thugs ran away. Then Bhagwan said, when Perumal offered to beat them up, Swami, let me go after them and give them nicely so that they would never again touch you. Bhagwan said, Perumal, they have done their work. We will do Father's work. This is how many devotees like me had seen him. This was the only occasion I heard him talk about aggressive Hinduism. Meaning, the Hindus must be brave soldiers. They should not give place to the conversions and other invasions. Meaning, the Hindus must be brave soldiers. They should not give place to the conversions and other invasions. That they should protect the Hindu religion so that the Vedas, Veda mantras, the Vedic Pandits will thrive on. They will live on. They will be well supported. They will be well protected. Now this Bhagwan is here right in front of us. with his hand raised in benediction, like every day we see him. And we shall submit our prayers today.